Throughout the history of this grand spectacle we call sports entertainment, giants have always carried a unique kind of allure. They're not just towering and powerful, they embody dominance, making the entire ring tremble with every step they take. From legends of the golden era to the larger-than-life icons who left unforgettable marks on fans' hearts, these giants shaped a distinct chapter in wrestling history. Their matches weren't merely fights, they were stories of strength, belief, and the relentless drive to push past human limits. Let's dive right in. Wrestling Sphere, go! Andre the Giant, the eighth wonder of the world. When it comes to legendary giants in professional wrestling, the first name that comes to mind for almost every fan is Andre the Giant. While he wasn't actually the tallest wrestler ever, that honor belongs to Giant Gonzalez. Andre became a timeless symbol, a larger-than-life figure respected and admired across the globe. He was known as the eighth wonder of the world, and that nickname was no exaggeration. Wherever Andre appeared, crowds flocked just to witness his extraordinary size and overwhelming presence. During the territorial days of the 1960s and 1970s, Andre quickly rose to international stardom. He dominated rings across Europe, his homeland, then made a major impact in Japan, before becoming the centerpiece of North American promotions under the NWA umbrella. The fans' fascination with Andre went far beyond the matches themselves. To them, he wasn't just a wrestler, he was a living legend, a figure that seemed to have stepped straight out of myth, both enormous and enigmatic. Remarkably, Andre stood out even in an era stacked with rugged icons like Harley Race, Dusty Rhodes, and Terry Funk. Yet, he remained a singular phenomenon unlike anyone else. But the moment that etched Andre's name deepest into wrestling history came at WrestleMania 3 in 1987. In front of over 90,000 fans, one of WWE's biggest crowds at the time, Andre faced Hulk Hogan for the WWF Championship. The world held its breath, and then came the defining moment. Hogan hoisted the over 500-pound giant into the air and delivered the legendary body slam. That scene instantly became one of the most iconic visuals in wrestling history. Even though Andre took the loss that night, the image of him as the Mountain Hogan had to conquer elevated both men to mythical status. Outside the ring, Andre's life carried a bittersweet undertone. He suffered from gigantism, a condition that caused his body to grow abnormally large while bringing constant pain and physical difficulties. This illness ultimately shortened his life, leading to his passing at just 46 years old. His death meant fans would never get to witness dream matches against the likes of Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, or Mick Foley, clashes that could have added new chapters to his legend. Still, Andre the Giant's legacy is eternal. He not only opened the door for future giants to thrive, but also proved that a wrestler's appeal isn't measured solely by height or weight. It's about connecting with the audience on a deep, emotional level. For everything he gave to the sport, Andre will forever remain the greatest giant in the hearts of millions of fans around the world. The Big Show, the giant who never stopped growing. Among the many giants who left a lasting impact on the wrestling world, Big Show, also known as Paul White, stands out as a name that can't be overlooked. Early in his career, he was even introduced as the son of Andre the Giant. It wasn't hard to see why. Standing nearly 7 feet tall and suffering from the same condition that caused abnormal body growth, he naturally drew comparisons to Andre. The image of Andre's successor quickly made him a focal point, especially at a time when Hulk Hogan, newly signed with WCW, was looking for a fresh mountain to conquer. A chance encounter on a basketball court opened the door for Paul White to become that next colossal challenge for Hogan. However, the moment Big Show truly came into his own was when he joined the WWF in 1999. Free from Andre's shadow, he emerged as his own man, a giant with his own style and presence. In just a short time, he proved his worth by capturing the WWF Championship twice, and eventually completing one of the most decorated resumes in company history, winning the World Heavyweight, Intercontinental, United States, Hardcore, and Tag Team titles. Few can match the variety and completeness of his accomplishments. Big Show's greatness wasn't just in his size or strength, but in his longevity. His career spanned over 3 decades, during which he faced multiple generations of top stars, from legends like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Triple H, to modern icons like John Cena, Randy Orton, and Braun Strowman. No matter the era, Big Show always maintained his place, switching seamlessly between being a terrifying, giant monster and a beloved character who could shock audiences with sudden turns and memorable moments. And even to this day, Paul White hasn't closed the book on his career. In 2023, he appeared on AEW Dynamite, teaming up with Kenny Omega, Chris Jericho, and Kota Ibushi to take on Don Callis faction. Seeing Big Show and Ibushi sharing a corner stunned and thrilled fans, proving that even after all these years, he's still adding to wrestling's chaos and excitement. With his incredible stature and unmatched endurance, Big Show will forever be one of the most unforgettable giants in sports entertainment history. Rikishi, the giant who made the crowd smile. When fans think of Rikishi, the first thing that usually comes to mind is his signature stink face, a hilarious yet iconic move that brought laughter every time it happened. But Rikishi's legacy goes far beyond that. He was a true performer, always willing to do whatever it took to entertain the audience and turn each appearance into something special. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Rikishi shined alongside Too Cool, Scotty 2 Hotty, and Grandmaster Sexay. After their matches, the trio often turned the ring into a dance floor, creating electric moments that fans remembered even more vividly than the matches themselves. With his massive frame yet surprisingly smooth dance moves, Rikishi showed that a giant could bring not only power but also charm and fun. His biggest strength was his connection with the crowd. Rikishi never hesitated to make himself the comedic focal point for the sake of entertainment, and that wholehearted approach made him one of the most beloved faces of the era. Fans didn't just come to see him wrestle, they came to experience the joy he brought to the show. Of course, not every chapter of his career was universally loved. In 2000, WWF shocked fans by turning Rikishi heel. It was a risky move, after all, it was hard to hate a man so closely tied to laughter and good vibes. The experiment didn't fully work out, but it didn't erase the affection fans had for him. Few remember that before he became Rikishi, he wrestled under the name Fatu as part of the Head Shrinkers. This earlier run toughened him in the ring before he finally found the character that fans adored. Rikishi wasn't a giant in the traditional menacing sense. What made him special was how he brought humor and pure entertainment into a world usually defined by intensity and violence. That uniqueness earned Rikishi a special place as one of the most memorable giants of WWE's Attitude Era. Yokozuna, the giant who brought sumo power to the ring. Within the powerful Anoa'i family, few figures stood out quite like Yokozuna. Instead of portraying a traditional Samoan warrior, Rodney Anoa'i, his real name, adopted the persona of a Japanese sumo wrestler. He embraced the role so convincingly that fans believed he truly came from the sumo world, and that creative choice led to one of the most dominant reigns in WWF history. Debuting in late 1992, Yokozuna immediately captured attention with his enormous size and sheer weight, combined with a style centered on crushing power. In a company long defined by heroic figures like Bruno Sammartino, Bob Backlund, and Hulk Hogan, Yokozuna's arrival as a dominant villain shifted the entire dynamic. Just months after his debut, he defeated Bret Hitman Hart to win the WWF Championship, beginning a reign that shook the company to its core. Over the following year, no challenger, whether Lex Luger, The Undertaker, or other major names, could stop him. His presence wasn't just about size. It was about the sense of threat he carried every time he entered the ring. The lone exception came when Hulk Hogan briefly stole the spotlight, but Yokozuna quickly reclaimed his throne. However, glory doesn't last forever. At WrestleMania X in 1994, after being worn down by Lex Luger earlier in the night, Yokozuna fell to Bret Hart, losing his title. From there, his career slowly declined. WWF began pairing him with Owen Hart in tag matches, using him more for late-match impact than as the central figure he once was. The reason was clear. Yokozuna's weight had spiraled out of control, leading several states to deny him a wrestling license. Concerned for his health, the company sent him home to lose weight. Tragically, he never made a full comeback. In 2000, the wrestling world was stunned when Yokozuna passed away at just 34 years old due to pulmonary edema complications. Though his life was cut short, Yokozuna left an indelible legacy, a sumo-style giant who reshaped the landscape of WWF during his era. Vader, the fearless mastodon. When talking about the greatest giants in wrestling history, Vader's name is always mentioned with deep respect. Some even argue that he surpassed Yokozuna, and it's easy to see why. Vader was the perfect example of a big man who combined raw power with rare agility for someone his size. From his earliest days competing in Japan, Vader created shockwaves across the wrestling world. His brutal destruction of Antonio Inoki, a seemingly untouchable icon, even sparked a near riot among the fans inside Sumo Hall. That moment alone was enough to establish Vader as a true force of nature. When he returned to the US, Vader continued to prove himself in WCW through unforgettable rivalries with Sting, Cactus Jack, and Ric Flair. Each bout highlighted his uncanny balance of mass and speed, something almost no one else in his weight class could match. His WWF run didn't push him as strongly as WCW did, but Vader still left an undeniable mark. Matches with Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, and Kane showed that the Mastodon could stand toe-to-toe with anyone. When he returned to Japan, he reclaimed his dominance, winning the Triple Crown twice and capturing the 1999 Champion Carnival, one of All Japan's most prestigious tournaments on par with NJPW's G1 Climax. What made Vader truly unique was his in-ring style. Few could believe that a man weighing over 450 pounds could climb to the top rope and hit a picture-perfect moonsault. He wasn't just a giant. He had the instincts and athleticism of a cruiserweight, a rare combination that made every opponent wary. Thanks to this, Vader maintained his aura well into the twilight of his career, even delivering standout matches on the independent scene against rising stars like Will Ospreay. Sadly, in 2018, Vader passed away from complications due to congestive heart failure. Though he's no longer with us, his legacy lives on. Vader wasn't just a big man. He proved that greatness in wrestling isn't defined by size alone, but by how you can leave the world in awe every time you step into the ring. Bam Bigelow, the giant flame of wrestling. In the 1990s, when fans talked about giants who could pull off the impossible, Bam Bigelow was always part of the conversation. Weighing over 400 pounds, with a flame-covered tattooed head, Bam could soar off the top rope with a smooth moonsault, a move many cruiserweights wouldn't dare attempt. This incredible mix of power and agility made him stand out, earning his place alongside legendary, big men like Vader. But it wasn't just his athleticism that made him memorable. Bam had a natural star presence, something you can't teach or fake. Whether in Japan, WCW, ECW, or WWF, he had a way of making every audience lock onto him the moment he walked out. When he first debuted in the WWF in the late 80s, he quickly became a phenomenon, even frequently teaming with Hulk Hogan, a privilege few enjoyed. Upon returning to WWF in the early 90s, Bam continued to receive high-profile spots. His peak came at WrestleMania 11, where he main event against NFL star Lawrence Taylor. While the match was more of a media spectacle than a title fight, Bam being chosen for that role showed how much faith the company had in him. With his fierce look, solid in-ring skill, and ability to deliver big match moments, he easily could have reached even greater heights. Unfortunately, backstage politics and personal struggles held him back. The influence of the clique behind the scenes, combined with painkiller addiction issues, prevented him from ever capturing a world championship, a title many believe he rightfully deserved. Still, these setbacks couldn't dim his legacy. Bam Bigelow wasn't just a powerful giant. He was living proof that even a man of his size could fly high and win over fans with bold, innovative performances. With all that he contributed, Bam unquestionably deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame, the place where wrestling legends are immortalized. Earthquake, the seismic force of the late 80s. When fans think of John Tenta, they remember him with genuine fondness and respect, though in truth, Earthquake never quite got the recognition he earned. Before joining WWF, Tenta was a successful sumo wrestler in Japan, achieving impressive accolades at a young age. This background shaped him into a giant who was both strong and surprisingly mobile, allowing him to rise quickly into main event territory in the late 1980s. At a time when Hulk Hogan reigned supreme, WWF needed a true monster to challenge him, and Earthquake fit the role perfectly. With his massive frame, intimidating glare, and devastating chest-crushing finisher, he terrified opponents. As a heel, his fiery feuds with Hogan often outshone title programs like Ultimate Warrior vs. Rick Rude. Off-screen, Tenta's humble and warm personality made fans embrace him when he later turned face. In the early 90s, he teamed with Tugboat to form the Natural Disasters, one of the most memorable tag teams of that era, eventually winning the WWF Tag Team Championships. Unfortunately, his later years in WCW and his return to WWF weren't booked as strongly. Gimmicks like the Shark and Gulga diminished his aura somewhat. Yet, the thunderous fan reaction during the Gimmick Battle Royal at WrestleMania X7 proved one thing. Fans had never forgotten Earthquake. John Tenta may not have always received storylines worthy of his talent, but his natural charisma and skill cement his place among wrestling's greatest giants. Tugboat, a giant torn between triumph and misfortune. When listing wrestling's greatest giants, you can't overlook the name Tugboat. Weighing 284 pounds, Fred Ottman possessed a massive frame and a naturally charismatic personality, making him a standout figure during WWF's golden era in the late 80s and early 90s. Interestingly, many modern fans remember him primarily for the infamous Shockmaster botch in WCW in 1993. But to focus only on that moment would be to ignore an entire career filled with significant contributions. Fred Ottman actually has deep family ties in wrestling. He's the uncle of Cody and Dustin Rhodes. In WWF, Tugboat was positioned prominently on the card. He debuted as Hulk Hogan's kayfabe ally, often standing alongside the Hulkster against villainous factions. In fact, early plans originally called for Tugboat to betray Hogan and set up a major match at WrestleMania 6, but that storyline was ultimately scrapped. Tugboat went on to engage in notable feuds with Earthquake and even The Undertaker. Transitioning from Tugboat to the character Typhoon, Ottman formed one of the largest tag teams in wrestling history, the Natural Disasters, alongside Earthquake. Their partnership thrilled fans and culminated in them winning the WWF Tag Team Championship, proving their dominance and chemistry as a duo. Of course, Ottman's career wasn't without setbacks. His Shockmaster debut became one of wrestling's most infamous bloopers, a joke that lingered for years. But rather than hide from it, Ottman embraced the moment. He even wore the glitter-covered Stormtrooper helmet, the very prop that caused the accident, at fan conventions, turning a failure into part of his personal legacy. Today, well into his 60s, Ottman has long since stepped away from the ring, but his legacy remains intact. Tugboat is remembered not just for memorable stories, but as proof that even giants can stumble, rise back up, and leave a lasting impression on generations of fans. The One-Man Gang, a lone giant who intimidated entire arenas. The One-Man Gang can look back on his career with satisfaction, having experienced nearly every major stage a wrestler could dream of. Starting out in Mid-South Wrestling and World-Class Championship Wrestling, he quickly made a name for himself thanks to his massive size, brutal style, and commanding presence that drew attention the instant he stepped through the curtain. By the late 80s, One-Man Gang reached the biggest stage, WWF, and immediately became a dangerous force. Few realize he was actually the winner of the very first Test Royal Rumble, held on October 4, 1987, a secret trial run to see if the concept would work. The success of that event led to the Royal Rumble becoming one of wrestling's most beloved match types. In a way, One-Man Gang played a small but vital role in the creation of one of WWE's most iconic events. His accomplishments didn't stop there. As One-Man Gang, he clashed with some of wrestling's biggest stars, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Jim Duggan, Ted DiBiase, and the Von Erich family. When the character started to lose momentum, he reinvented himself in 1988 as Akeem the African Dream. Although the gimmick leaned heavily on satire, George Gray, the man behind the persona, managed to make Akeem a memorable character. Teaming with Big Boss Man as the Twin Towers, they created numerous unforgettable WWF moments. Even in the later stages of his career, when he returned to the South and joined WCW, One-Man Gang maintained a steady spot. While his physical prime had passed, he remained a credible threat to younger talents and was even selected to help build up El Gigante, though that project ultimately fell flat. Regardless, it showcased the respect and reliability he earned over decades. Gorilla Monsoon, a giant both in and out of the ring. For many modern fans, the name Gorilla Monsoon is more associated with his legendary role as a WWF commentator than with his time as a terrifying in-ring competitor. But before he sat behind the announce desk, Monsoon was a legitimate big man, a dominant force who made audiences rise to their feet the moment he appeared. In the 1960s and early 1970s, under Vince McMahon's seniorist leadership, Gorilla Monsoon was regularly featured as one of the company's top heels. With his massive frame, intense presence, and powerhouse wrestling style, he was the perfect foil for beloved champions like Bruno Sammartino and Bobo Brazil. New York fans of that era witnessed countless classic battles where Monsoon played the role of the immovable mountain the heroes had to overcome. By the early 70s, Monsoon turned babyface, shifting into the role of the gentle giant, a figure who was both imposing and admirable, fighting for honor and fairness. His clashes with superstar Billy Graham, Killer Kowalski, and Big Cat Ernie Ladd solidified his status as a golden era icon. Monsoon's impact extended far beyond the ring. The backstage area where wrestlers prepare before stepping out is famously called the gorilla position, a tribute to his behind-the-scenes influence and leadership. This honor reflects his legacy not just as a wrestler or commentator, but as one of the foundational figures of WWF. Gorilla Monsoon stands as proof that a giant can be remembered not just for physical size, but for the lasting mark they leave on the entire wrestling world. Haystacks Calhoun, the barefoot giant. How could a man weighing over 600 pounds become the perfect image of a gentle giant? The answer lies in Haystacks Calhoun, a massive figure with a warm heart, a truly unique icon in wrestling history. Born William D. Calhoun in Texas, he entered the ring tipping the scales at more than 600 pounds, a number that left entire arenas in awe. But what made fans love him wasn't just his enormous size, it was his down-to-earth, kind-hearted personality. Every time he appeared, Calhoun wore denim overalls, went barefoot, and carried a giant horseshoe over his shoulder. That instantly recognizable look turned him into the unforgettable country giant of wrestling folklore. His in-ring style was simple yet devastating. Crushing splashes and sit-down attacks became his signature finishers, making opponents wary of every encounter. Though he lacked speed and intricate technique, Calhoun used his incredible bulk to tell compelling stories in the ring. From the 1950s through the late 1970s, he became a staple of countless tag team bouts, helping define what it meant to be a true super heavyweight in the public eye. Outside the ring, Calhoun was beloved for his generosity and sincerity. He always made time for fans, showing that great size didn't have to be intimidating. A giant could also bring joy, comfort, and warmth to the crowd. That genuine charm made Haystacks Calhoun one of the most endearing figures in professional wrestling history. Big Daddy, Britain's national icon. You don't need to be the tallest, heaviest, or strongest to become a legend. Sometimes, all it takes is touching the heart of a nation, and Big Daddy, born Shirley Crabtree, proved exactly that. Standing nearly 6 feet 6 inches tall and weighing over 300 pounds, he wasn't the stereotypical monster giant seen in American promotions. But during the 1970s and 1980s, he became a household name across the United Kingdom, forever tied to the childhood memories of millions. Every Saturday afternoon, families would gather around their TVs to watch Big Daddy step into the ring on national television. When his entrance music hit, children screamed his name, while adults rose to cheer him on. In those moments, Big Daddy wasn't just a wrestler, he was a national hero. His wrestling style was straightforward, heavy slams, powerful collisions, and a commanding presence in the ring. His appeal didn't rely on complex technique, but on his confident charisma and infectious positivity. With his silver hair, glittering robe, and approachable performance style, he became the ultimate, friendly giant for the British audience. One of the most defining chapters of his career was his legendary feud with Giant Haystacks. It wasn't just a battle between two massive men, it was a cultural event, etched into the memories of an entire generation. These clashes were remembered less for flashy moves and more for the raw emotion and excitement Big Daddy brought to the crowd. He didn't need over-the-top drama or blood-soaked rivalries to achieve legendary status. What he offered was pure entertainment, simple, joyful, and genuine, something even the most skilled wrestlers often struggle to deliver. Decades later, the name Big Daddy still echoes through time, standing as a timeless symbol of kindness, joy, and an honest love for professional wrestling in the hearts of British fans. The Maguire twins, the Colossal brothers who shook the ring. In a world where size and strength often define legends, Billy and Benny Maguire, famously known as the world's heaviest twins, became a phenomenon fans could never forget. They weren't only remembered for their staggering weight, but also for the unbreakable bond that carried them into every match as brothers united. Standing side by side, they were like a moving wall of humanity. Billy tipped the scales at over 723 pounds, while Benny went even further at 745, bringing their combined weight close to 1,500 pounds. Just watching the two of them slowly make their way to the ring was enough to send waves of awe through the crowd. But the Maguire twins were more than just a spectacle. They knew how to turn their massive frames into a weapon inside the ropes. Their tag team style revolved around sheer mass and perfectly timed teamwork. When they dropped their weight onto opponents or executed double team maneuvers, escape was nearly impossible. Their matches were never about speed or finesse. Instead, they were about spectacle. Every move they made left the audience stunned, trapped somewhere between disbelief and fascination. Sadly, their story as a team came to an end in 1979 when Billy passed away, leaving Benny to carry the memory of their partnership alone. Yet the legacy of the Maguire twins lives on as one of the most unique and irreplaceable chapters in professional wrestling history. They proved that sometimes it isn't about being the fastest or the strongest, it's about standing out, and about the brotherhood that made them truly larger than life. Giant Haystacks, Britain's giant with power and presence. Giant Haystacks, born Martin Ruan, was one of the most unforgettable figures in the history of British wrestling. Standing nearly 7 feet tall and weighing close to 700 pounds at his peak, he wasn't just intimidating because of his massive size. He carried an aura that filled the entire arena the moment he stepped through the curtain. While inspired by the legendary super heavyweight Haystacks Calhoun, Giant Haystacks carved out his own identity on World of Sport, where he became a household name throughout the 1970s and 80s. His legendary rivalry with Big Daddy defined an era of British wrestling, captivating families every Saturday afternoon. Where Big Daddy was the friendly larger-than-life hero, Haystacks was the perfect opposite, menacing, grim, and powerful, a towering villain fans loved to hate. What made Haystacks truly special, though, went beyond his sheer size. He had a unique charisma, blending brute force with an authenticity that drew people in. Behind the scowl and the imposing frame, fans could sense something deeper, almost a touch of loneliness beneath the role of the monster heel. That complexity gave him a presence no one could replicate. On the international stage, he made a brief but memorable appearance in WCW during the mid-1990s under the name Loch Ness. Even though health issues prevented a long run, just one look at him was enough to leave a lasting impression on American fans who had never seen anything quite like him. Giant Haystacks wasn't just a wrestler, he was a cultural icon. A reminder of a time when true giants walked the ring and captured imaginations in a way that few ever could. His name still echoes as one of the cornerstones of Britain's golden era of wrestling. And those were the greatest giants to ever light up the wrestling ring. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the exciting stories coming your way from Wrestling Sphere.